In this video, we're going to look at Reading cycle route R1. This route starts by the River Kennet near the Oracle and goes down to Green Park, the stadium and the Reading International Business Park. R1 is actually a network of a few different routes, but today we're just going to pick one of them. We're going to start on the northern end and we're going to go down all the way to the Reading International Business Park. So, without further ado, the route starts by taking us towards the A33, which it runs alongside for the most part. As you can see, this section is pretty decrepit and definitely needs some tidying up. It's not very inviting. By the way, I've slightly sped up the footage just to make the video a little bit shorter. There are a few junctions like the one we're just going across here where you really have to stop, turn all the way back and look over your shoulder before crossing, because you can have cars coming 30 miles an hour around these really wide radius curves. This is not really ideal for a cycle route. There are definitely better ways of doing this. When I filmed this, the council were upgrading the A33 bus lanes, and this means that in the video there'll be quite a few temporary traffic lights and a few detours like the one just here where they've closed the shared use pavement. I'm not sure if I'm actually allowed to cycle here, but I didn't see any signs suggesting where the cyclists should go, so I guess it's fine. It probably goes without saying, but cycling right next to a busy A road is really not very fun. And it's not noisy today, but this road gets really busy at peak times, so much so that we wouldn't actually recommend taking this route at all up until the junction coming ahead. Instead, we recommend to take the National Cycle Route 4, which goes along the quiet streets from central Reading, through the Waterloo Meadows, and then past the Kennet River, and using that route you can join up with R1 at the junction that we're about to negotiate in a second. It's much nicer. We'll do a separate video about the National Cycle Route 4 as it passes through Reading in the future. Waiting at these lights took absolutely ages, so I'm just going to speed it up because it's kind of boring otherwise. And we've got more lights. The section I'm cycling on here is apparently going to become a bus lane, but don't worry, the council are planning to build a bridge right next to this one, which will just be for walkers and cyclists, so the provision will not be lost. Now here you could just carry on straight, which would lead south, but I prefer to duck underneath the bridge here to access the other side, which is quite a lot more pleasant to cycle along. Though in the winter you really have to be careful going around this curve. I actually slipped up on leaf mulch once and fell off. Fortunately the council have trimmed back the trees, so I don't think that will happen again for a few years, but still be very careful. Now this is much nicer, and I really wish the whole route could be like this, to be honest. On the left you can see the Kennet Island housing estate, which seems like a natural source of users for a path like this, which would allow them to go all the way into town. But the connections to the estate are really not very good at all. Coming up there's a junction and there's no facilities, any segregated cycling facilities across the road to the left into Kennet Island, and also on the northern end there's no natural connection to the cycle route 4 there other than along a dirt track. Now here we have a two-stage crossing which has a really awkward right angle turn you have to make in the middle. I don't think whoever built this had bicycles in mind. According to R1, the official way to access Green Park is along a road off of the roundabout coming up. But instead we actually recommend that you go straight ahead here, which takes you right under that roundabout and gets you into Green Park through the back door, so to speak, which allows you to access it without going on road. And another series of crossings. There's quite a few of them on this route. Obviously, most people wouldn't be as pedantic as me and would just look for a gap in the traffic and pass when it's safe. But I don't think this is really how these were intended to be used. So maybe we should be thinking about ways they could be retimed so that it isn't such a pain for people walking and cycling. If you want to go to B&Q, cross here. This route is entirely traffic free, which is very unusual for Reading, and this is accomplished through shared use paths where pedestrians and cyclists share the same space. Now this is kind of fine when there isn't a lot of pedestrians or cyclists, but in other parts of the borough it doesn't work well at all, particularly where you have lots of pedestrians and the occasional cyclist. Getting through is just a pain. So this should really be a last resort in most places, but here it sort of works. Coming up is an epic detour which the route takes us on, just to avoid this roundabout here. And this betrays the fact that the cycle route was added very much after the road was designed and built. In other words, it's an afterthought. Now, fair enough, that's how things were done when the A33 was built a few decades ago, but I'd like to think that walkers and cyclists would be given a bit more consideration if this kind of road was built today. Who knows? This crossing is completely uncontrolled, so we just have to wait for a gap in the traffic. Well, that was fun. Even though our video series starts with this route, it is certainly not the most pleasant and attractive cycling route in Reading, mainly because of the proximity to the road. But one thing it does get right is the surfaces are generally really nice and smooth, which is something you don't often see in Reading on shared use cycle footpaths. Have you spotted it? In a second we're going to go around the most pointless barrier in all of Reading, which doesn't seem to serve any purpose other than to make your life a little bit harder if you're on wheels. Of course, like everyone else, we're just going to go around it, and I really think this should have been removed years ago. And as we reach the Reading International Business Park, the route finishes. On the whole, this route is not terrible, but it does suffer from its close proximity to the busy A33 road. And that means not only are you cycling right next to an extremely noisy road with all of the pollution, but also every time you encounter a junction on that road, you have to wait 2 or 3 minutes for an opening. We think that this route could be improved by separating the cycle route from the road in more places, and that could be done through a grass verge in certain locations, but it could also be done by routing through the neighbourhoods surrounding the road, like Kennet Island, for example. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to our channel. We hope to post videos on all of the cycle routes of Reading in the future.